Okay, hello everybody. Welcome. So glad to see everybody here. And let me just say from the get-go, it's wonderful to see so many Ukrainian journalists and journalists who operate in Ukraine. Certainly incredibly relevant to the conversation that we're going to have today. My name is Vivian Schiller. I am Executive Director of Aspen Digital. We're a program of the Aspen Institute that focuses on all things at the intersection of media and technology. Press issues and freedom of the press is a big area of focus for us. I'm a lifelong journalist, so I care about these issues greatly. And I'm delighted to be here today with Tikhon Dzyadko, who is the editor-in-chief of TV Dozhd, otherwise known as TV Rain, which is a Russian broadcast news operation. Tikhon's been with TV Dozhd on and off since 2010, is now editor-in-chief. You have been for quite a few years, and it's been quite a number of years for you, but particularly a year and a half. And so what we're going to talk about today is Russian news media in exile. But just to get started, Tikhon, just for those who don't know, just say a little bit about TV Dozhd and what it is.
Well, so TV Dozhd, first of all, thank you, and thank you all for coming here. TV Dozhd, or TV Rain, was created in 2010 during the presidency of Dmitry Medvedev, when there was this idea of so-called liberalization in Russia. Since the beginning, TV Rain was broadcasting independently. TV Rain is an independent news TV channel. What was really important to us that we were independently funded in Russia, mostly by our viewers, because part of our content was under the subscription. But everything has changed after the beginning of full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine, when Russian parliament adopted several repressive laws. First, the law about so-called discreditation of Russian army, and the second is a law about spreading fake news information about Russian military activities in Ukraine, which basically means that you are not allowed to use the word war. You are not allowed to spread any information which was not proven by Russian Ministry of Defense, which means that you are not allowed to say anything. That's why TV Rain and our journalists, just like many other independent Russian journalists, decided to leave the country at the beginning of March 2022.
So I want to come back and talk about your experience since 2024, but just 2022, but just to set the stage. Prior to the invasion of Ukraine, was TV Dozhd able to operate relatively freely in terms of what you were reporting?
Yes and no, because before the invasion there was some sort of rules in Russia. Russian government let independent media operate in Russia, but Russian government was trying to do everything in order not to make this information available to many people. For example, TV Rain, after the coverage of TV Rain of Maidan in Ukraine in 2014, TV Rain was cut off of main cable and satellite networks in Russia, and mostly we were on YouTube and on the website, but of course we were saying whatever we wanted, and we were receiving fines from the government, etc. But still, it was possible to operate.
But clearly, after the war, after the invasion began, you effectively could not report anything that was clearly happening that everybody knew. So you relocated to Riga.
Well, so on March 1st, our website was blocked by the government, and me and some other our journalists, we were receiving threats. And with this new legislation adopted by Russian Parliament, we understood that we had two options, two choices. The first option is to continue working like we've been doing over last 12 years and end up in jail, like many people now in Russia. The second option was to basically become the part of news department of Minister of Defense, which was absolutely unacceptable to us. We chose the third option. We left the country. First, we went to Georgia, and then we established we relaunched TV station in Riga, Latvia, and part of our team is in Amsterdam, in Netherlands.
Right. And how many people is it roughly?
Well, now we have around 90 people, I guess.
Yeah.
In Moscow, we used to have 200. Now it's
Yeah.
less.
Okay, so you're in Riga now. You're continuing to broadcast. You're blocked in Russia. Still available on YouTube in Russia?
So we have two main challenges. The first challenge is since our main goal is to tell about Russia and tell to the Russians. So the first challenge is how to get information from Russia, since more than 5,000 websites were blocked in Russia. A lot of independent journalists left the country. All the laws are very repressive. So the first challenge is how to get information from Russia. The second challenge is how to deliver information into Russia.
So how are you reporting in Russia from Riga?
Well, we thank God it's not 90/70. We're not Radio Svoboda, Radio Free Liberty, and there is no Iron Curtain. And even though, as I mentioned, more than 5,000 websites are blocked, still internet operates, and it's possible to get information from people. We still have some journalists who work there on an anonymous basis. They're sending footages and videos to us, but it's a big problem. For example, a couple of months ago, we were making a story about Belgorod region. It's the region on the border with Ukraine, with Kharkiv region in Ukraine. And our cameraman was filming the story there, and he was there with some volunteer, and this volunteer was driving him in the car. And in 10 minutes, he stopped next to police, and he said that this guy, our cameraman, works for foreign agent, because TV Rain is designated as foreign agent in Russia. So it's a big problem. As for delivery,
Wait, what happened to him?
well, he was fined for $50 or something like that. So not that bad. As for delivering information into Russia, all the main social media websites are blocked, but a lot of people are getting access to them with VPN services. For some reason, YouTube is not blocked in Russia yet. Eventually, it will happen. But thanks to YouTube, we are able to deliver our information to millions of Russians every month.
But the incident you talked, just coming back to how you're able to report, that incident where your cameraman was basically turned in by a fixer, I mean, you must have tremendous concern about those who are reporting anonymously from Russia. How do you ensure their safety?
We cannot be sure, unfortunately. The only thing we can do is not to have reporters on air from Moscow with a mic of TV Rain.
You probably have nobody on air. I can't imagine in Russia they would be immediately identified.
Well, we still, some people are ready to talk, but less and less. For example, one of the main Russian websites, Meduza, was a couple of months ago was designated as so-called undesirable organization in Russia, which means that if you, for example, give interview to this media, you are having cooperation with undesirable undesirable organization, and this is a criminal case. So we know for sure that it will happen with TV Rain soon, and which will make our life even worse in terms of reporting from Russia.
Foreign agent is less serious than undesirable.
Yes.
Okay, doesn't make much sense, but fine. So so you're able to continue. You and Medusa, and there's quite a number of other Russian news organizations operating in exile, are still able to report, tell the truth about what's happening in Russia, tell the truth about what's happening with the Russian troops in Ukraine. Are you able to? Well, of course, in Ukraine, do you have reporters in Ukraine?
No, we don't have reporters in Ukraine because we are Russian citizens and we are not able to come into Ukraine because there is this visa regime with Russia since July 1st, I guess, and I don't think that Russian citizens are getting visas in Ukraine. Also, TV Rain was blocked in Ukraine in 2017, and I don't think it would be the smartest thing for TV Rain to send reporters there now.
How are you funding your business? I mean, well, just describe briefly what your business model was before, 15 months ago, and how you're funding yourself now.
Well, so before the invasion, 60% of our budget was coming from subscription. Also, we were getting some money from cable networks, distribution in cable networks in Russia and outside of Russia. Also, we were getting donations from our viewers, and we were getting money from YouTube, monetization of YouTube. After the February 24th, everything has changed because our website was blocked, so we lost our subscribers. Russian bank cards, they do not work in Europe, so it's hard to get donations from people. YouTube, for some reason, I don't get this logic, but YouTube stopped monetizing Russian views, so we get $0, 0 cents from views from Russia. What do I mean when I say that I don't see logic here? I mean that YouTube blocked all the propaganda channels on YouTube, and Russian YouTube now is Russian opposition and Russian independent media, and they are
also blocked.
They are not blocked, but they do not get money from.
That's what I mean. So they've dropped the monetization. You got swept up in.
Yeah. So it just to me doesn't make any sense. So now we exist on helps from donors, money from YouTube from outside of Russia, and donations from the viewers.
So I know things recently have gotten and are continuing to get more complicated. You're needing to leave Riga. Talk a little bit about, I know there's a lot of reasons for that, but there was a controversy, was it an incident, I should call it, was it 6 months ago?
It was in December. Yeah.
In December, okay, in December, where your anchor said something on the air that sounded like it was in support of the Russian military. Right. So describe what happened.
Well, so in September 2001, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced military draft in Russia, and there was a huge interest for the news among Russians, and we opened the mailbox army@tvrain.tv, and we called our viewers to send us information about mobilization.
This is part of your reporting.
Absolutely, and we were getting these stories, and we were telling people these stories. Our goal was to show, because the idea of Russian government was that if you get the paper where you are being called to come to the military office, come there and you'll be fine, you will not be drafted. And we were receiving a lot of stories when people with some diseases, etc., they were drafted. And we were getting these stories in order to explain to our viewers that they should do whatever they can, but not go there. And on December 1st, our anchor, Alexei Kristelyov, he was announcing this mailbox again, and he said, we hope that with our reporting, Russian mobilized soldiers on the front line will get better conditions because they are in terrible conditions on the front line. This phrase was absolutely unacceptable because two reasons. First, it was a lie because he said, we hope. We do not hope, and he...
You're a news organization.
Yes, and he's not authorized to say we. Me as editor-in-chief, I am the only person who is authorized to say we about TV Rain. So it was a lie because we did not hope that they would get better conditions. Second thing, it was absolutely inappropriate and unacceptable because we do not support Russian army. We think that Russian army is committing military crimes in Ukraine.
You effectively was saying we hope this invading army is more comfortable as they're invading Ukraine.
Absolutely. We hope that they would feel better in killing Ukrainians in Ukraine. So the next day we fired him. But in Latvia, the media regulator called us the threat to the national security and revoked our license. We, even though I admit that it was a terrible mistake and terrible words and unacceptable phrase, and I apologized for it, but we think that it was inadequate reaction because TV Rain is not a threat to the national security. So now we are in court with the Latvian government, with this media regulator, and I hope that we will win the case and we will not be anymore called the threat to the national security of Latvian Republic. But we are not asking for getting back our Latvian license. We received a European license in Netherlands, and soon all of our journalists will move to Amsterdam from Riga. Yeah.
But I would imagine, in fact, I know that an incident like this, including the fact that the owner of TV Rain didn't agree with your decision when it was your decision to fire the anchor, exacerbated already discomfort, to use it mildly, among many Europeans to have towards all Russians, regardless of whether they are independent journalists trying to tell the truth about what's happening in Russia. You nonetheless have a blue passport. How are you experiencing that?
Well, it's a terrible situation, but unfortunately my government is waging terrible war in Ukraine. And my government and soldiers of my country are killing people and killing. They killed almost 500 kids in Ukraine already. For example, I personally responsible for it? No. Do I responsible for it as a citizen of the Russian Federation? Yes. Do I understand why TV Rain, even though it's an independent TV station known for its anti-Putin, anti-war position, is not welcomed by a lot of people in Ukraine or in Europe? Do I understand it? Yes, I understand it. Do I think at the same time that all who are against this war, no matter which passport they have, are allies of civilized world? Yes, I think so. So it's
thank you for asking all the questions. And
so it's a complicated situation, but it's not the worst thing which is happening now in the world.
No, of course. Although I'd like to think of it as not a competition for who has the worst experiences. It can still be a bad experience, even if it's not obviously anywhere in the same universe of what Ukrainian journalists
Sure.
are experiencing. We understand that. We have this. Our time is very short, so yeah. But we do want to get a few questions in. If you have the mic here, go ahead, and please identify yourself and your affiliation. You're going to have to get a little closer.
Can hear? Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Miroslava Gongadzhe, Voice of America, Eastern Europe chief. Thank you for your position. The question is two kind of related questions. The dictatorships are not built in a day. So why do you think a Russian leadership were able to actually become who they became in Russia? And do you feel that you as a media representative or other media representative how kind of responsible for that? In the same time, a related question about you just admitted that you feel as a Russian citizen responsible for what Russian army is doing in Ukraine. Do you think that's related to other of your fellow citizens? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. I think that the Russia becoming dictatorship, it has a lot of reasons. 90s in Russia were, we had freedom, but people were poor. And when Putin came, the prices of gas and oil were rising, and he gave money to a lot of people. He told them, I'm taking your freedom, but I'm giving you your comfort. And it was comfortable to a lot of people. At the same time, he was shutting down news organizations. You perfectly know it. And people in Russia, unfortunately, were fine with this because finally they had comfort. They were able to buy cars and travel in France or in Turkey or somewhere else. And they were thinking that without freedom is better than with freedom, because now they have money. At the same time, unfortunately, Western countries were fine with Russian government doing terrible things in Russia. And when Russian opposition leaders were beaten and when rally were beaten by the police, European leaders were shaking hands with Putin and buying Russian gas and oil. So I think it's like the complicated situation, but I am mature enough to understand that people who are leaving the country, they are the first people to be responsible for what is happening in their country. As for your second question, I think people have different opinions. I mean, I don't think that people should be recognized only because of their passports. I know a lot of bad people in Russia carrying Israeli passports or other passports because they bought some houses, for example, in Latvia. That's how they get residence permit and then passport. But I think people who are active, like journalists, for example, they, especially now during the war, and me, should think, did I do enough not to let this happen? I don't know what should I have done differently, but if this terrible war is happening, it means that I did not do everything I could have done.
We've got just time for one more question. Sevgil. It's coming.
Thank you. I will continue the question. I think that's important to have it. So I'm Sevgil Musava, I'm chief editor of Ukrainska Pravda, and Ukrainska Pravda was founded by Georgy Gongadzhe in 2000. And you mentioned about counter-liberalization, and my question will be about that. In the beginning of 2000, actually, Russia was more democratic state than Ukraine. And then in 2000, Gongadzhe launched Ukrainska Pravda. He was killed then, and it's led to accusation against government, to protests with the end of revolution of for first revolution, Orange Revolution in 2004. And it was our way to democracy. In 2000, Putin came to power. He just removed all independent media from your. In 2007, Anna Politkovskaya was killed in Russia. A brilliant Russian journalist, but you didn't go to the protest. You didn't say, like, you just accepted, like, I mean, all Russian journalists. You told us that TV Rain was launched in 2010 when it was kind of a liberalization, but what kind of liberalization you're talking about? It was possible because you just accepted the murder of your colleague, Anna Politkovskaya, and you didn't protest in 2007, you didn't follow this question in years and years and years.
Well, with all due respect, that's not true. If you were telling me, I did protest because of the killing of Anna Politkovskaya, for example, with Pavel Kanygin from Novaya Gazeta, who is sitting there. If you mean why millions of people did not protest because of killing of Anna Politkovskaya, I don't know, frankly. And I cannot judge 140 million of people. I can speak to myself and about my colleagues and friends. When I'm saying liberalization, I mean that in 2010, during the presidency of Dmitry Medvedev, they pretended that it was a liberalization. That's why I said so-called liberalization. And it was possible to get a license. Before presidency of Medvedev and after the presidency of Medvedev, it would have been impossible to get a license for independent media. During this period of time, it was possible. But after the protests on Bolotny Square in 2011-2012, they understood that it was a bad idea, even pretending the liberalization.
I really wish we could keep this conversation going, but unfortunately we are out of time and I'm getting the hook. We're getting the hook. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good luck to you. Thank you for the great questions.